Yo, what is up everybody, it's Jay the Great here and welcome back to another Naruto reaction video here today. And today we have an interesting hypothetical matchup discussion video by the Great Six once again. And as you can tell by the title, this is the Shinobi Alliance versus the Akatsuki, the real winner. So folks, I think it's important to assess and acknowledge the fact that the specifics of this matchup will greatly alter the most likely winner of this matchup. So if we're talking about end of war arc, Shinobi Alliance versus almost any version of the Akatsuki, well, the Shinobi Alliance would slam, right? We got a Might Guy that can use all 8 gates. We know what he's capable of. And we have 6 past Naruto and Sasuke, right? And if you really want to be pedantic and really add on to that power, DMS Kakashi, Sakura, what would the Akatsuki do against all of them? They would get slammed. Even with 2-eye, 3-eye Jubidara, it's very likely that the Akatsuki would still lose if you want to add Jubidara into the group of the Akatsuki that we were talking about, right? So the Shinobi Alliance would most likely win in that scenario. I think all of us could agree with that, or at least a vast majority, right? So if we want to kind of turn the tides here, we could talk about beginning of the war, Shinobi Alliance versus, the Akatsuki with Jubidara included and White Mask Obito included and Edo, Itachi, and Nagato included. The Shinobi Alliance is losing, right? The only X factor would probably be 8 gates Might Guy, but again, he's not strong enough to beat Jubidara, so they would lose anyway. He would be probably the toughest guy to deal with, probably the strongest in the Shinobi Alliance, arguably. We have a uncontrolled KCM1 Naruto, barely learning how to use his abilities, not nearly as strong as he was by the end of the war. We got beginning of the war, EMS Sasuke, who's arguably around the level of Edo Itachi, give or take. There's no way they're beating that version of the Akatsuki. So basically, with those two scenarios that I have painted, the point is that specifics greatly matter and will greatly alter the conclusion of this matchup. And I'm sure that Six is going to discuss various scenarios, right? Because the Shinobi Alliance is a term with a wide spectrum of possible versions of the respective Shinobi Alliance. And then we got the Akatsuki. Some people think Madara should be part of it, some people don't, right? We got to talk about specific versions of Itachi, Pain, Obito, etc. So I'm very intrigued to see what Six had to say about this one. But before we begin, anyways, greatly appreciate it. Hit that like button. Turn on bell notifications to stay updated with yours truly. And if you enjoy, man, and you mess with the kid, make sure to hit that sub button, because once you do, become part of the family forever. But let's not waste any more time, screen. Let's see what Six says today.
The Akatsuki versus the Shinobi Alliance. This battle would likely never happen, but a good way to look at it would be to replace Obito, Madara, and Kabuto in the Fourth War with the Akatsuki members that I'll mention here in a second. To start off this battle, it's kind of important that we establish which forms of the characters are being used. For the Akatsuki, we'll be using the team composition from the very beginning of part 2, which includes Deidara, Hidan, Itachi.
Alright, so we're speaking of these Akatsuki members and this version of the Akatsuki respectively. Alright.
Now that doesn't mean that they're going to be at the same power level they were at the beginning of part 2, just that's the team that's going to be up against the Alliance. For the Shinobi Alliance, we'll be choosing the point in time from when Naruto and B first joined them on the second day of the war. This Shinobi Alliance would include the previously mentioned Jinchuriki duo, the Gokage and their ninja, Mifune and the samurai, and some of the shinobi from smaller villages. We're told by Zetsu, who's relaying the intel he got from Kisame, that the Shinobi Alliance is about 80,000 strong. We're later informed by the narrator that the casualties of the Alliance amounted around 40,000 by the first night, so the Akatsuki will be up against an army.
I guess I'd like to add, and I'm kind of extrapolating this already, it seems that Sasuke is not part of the Shinobi Alliance in Six's assessment. I can see why. Technically, he wasn't part of it till they started fighting the Ten Tails. So I was presupposing with my scenarios that I laid out earlier in this video, I was presupposing that he would be part of it. But it's again, it depends on what versions of the Alliance you're talking about. Let's continue though. It makes it more interesting if he's not involved, right?
Each side's objective will be defeating their opponents, and there will be no plans for Project Tsukunomi or any desire to capture any Biju or leave Jinchurikis alive. That's all for the battle conditions and rules. So before we get into the actual video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy versus battles. This one in particular was pretty fun to do. So let's get started with the Akatsuki. To start off this war, we'll analyze the collective power of the Akatsuki first by analyzing a couple of statements that should apply to the group in its entirety. There's a flashback in the battle of Itachi and Kisame versus Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai, where Jiraiya tells Kakashi that almost all of the Akatsuki are S-rank criminals in the bingo book, as said by Anko a little while ago in chapter 50 of the manga. These shinobi are the worst type of security risk. In Pain's character file of the third data book, there's a section labeled The Akatsuki, which reads, "The shinobi of the Akatsuki each join with his own expectations. These shinobi who have the talent and skill to battle 1,000 men at once, why would they join an organization and obey Pain in capturing tailed beasts?" Then on page 196 of the same data book, there's an entry for the Akatsuki that contains such statements as, "Hardened, skillful master is even stronger than the Jinchuriki, and they always operate in two-man cells, and each member has a quota of one-tailed beast to capture." With these statements in mind, it helps us understand that not only are the Akatsuki far ahead of the average shinobi, but even the weakest among them can fight 1/40th of the entire alliance all by themselves. Every individual should be able to fight the likes of a Jinchuriki such as Yugito Ni, who is stated to be a powerful kunoichi that even B once looked up to in the art book. Although it can be said for every individual, it should be implied that the statement is referring to their quota, that if they need to be a two-man cell, should be able to take down any Biju. With this in mind, the 40,000 size manpower of the Shinobi Alliance doesn't seem all too impressive. So unless you're at the level of an elite Jonin or teaming up with one, you don't stand a chance against these guys at all. We'll be going over the other members of the Akatsuki in alphabetical order, so the first to discuss is Deidara. Deidara is somebody who has taken down the Three Tails with the assistance of Tobi, defeated the start of Part 2 Gaara using the Sand Village to assist him, and pressed Sasuke after he had already defeated and absorbed a weakened Orochimaru. The fight against Gaara is made way more impressive by the fact that Deidara was low on clay way quicker than he was against Sasuke. This implies he underestimated Gaara and was ill prepared. He also had to take Gaara alive for the Akatsuki's objective. Deidara's best showings come from the battle with Sasuke, where he showed all of his bombs except C3, which he likely didn't use because of how easily Sasuke could have evaded it. With his C2 bombs, he's shown to be able to destroy a wing off of second stage Curse Seal Sasuke's body. This speaks heavily to Deidara's durability because Deidara was also hit by his own C2 bombs, yet he lost no limbs. His C3 bomb almost destroyed the entire Sand Village and forced Gaara to protect it by using a huge amount of sand from the environment, which tired him out and left him in a more vulnerable state. With his C4 bomb, he can release a huge airborne bomb that causes an explosion on a cellular level by breathing it in and has forest size range that Sasuke couldn't have outran. However, the weakness of the jutsu is also shown here as well, where it's shown to be diffused by the usage of the Sharingan that can see its chakra and the lightning chakra to actually diffuse the bombs itself. A rare combination of abilities in the Naruto verse, Sasuke is really the only one with this. With the C0 bomb, Deidara sacrifices himself to create the most powerful bomb yet, shown to kill Manda, giving only a little bit of time left for the explosion. Overall, Deidara is a Kage level threat himself that most of the Alliance is not going to have an answer to dealing with. The next member in the line of the group is Hidan. Ignoring Zetsu, Hidan is commonly looked at as the weakest member of the Akatsuki due to his self-proclaimed shortcomings in speed and aim compared to the other Akatsuki members. So because of this, we'll be way more brief when discussing his scaling. Hidan's best showings are being superior to Asuma and being able to clash with Kakashi for a short period of time. Asuma, despite not having more screen time and dying really early on, is still decently powerful. In the first data book, he's said to be comparable to Kakashi in strength, Kakashi being the strongest Jonin in the strongest village. This would put Hidan in the elite Jonin level range of power. Next character in line for the Akatsuki is Itachi, a common pick for one of the strongest members of the group. Goes without saying that he is one of the most useful assets for the Akatsuki in this battle.
Absolutely.
Itachi is a shinobi with many talents, which includes his skill with weapons, ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, and best of all, his Sharingan. Even with just his base Sharingan, Itachi was able to casually defeat Orochimaru in an encounter that resulted in Orochimaru leaving the Akatsuki, losing an arm and being fearful of Itachi. With the Mangekyo, obviously he'd be even better than this, using abilities such as Amaterasu, Tsukuyomi, and Susanoo. With the Amaterasu, he creates eternal black flames as hot as the sun, as said in Data Book 2. Some people do argue this is a simile, which I could also see a thing for, but Amaterasu is hot, everybody knows that. Even Sasuke's usage of this jutsu upon his initial awakening of it was powerful enough to overcome the power of a perfect Jinchuriki Biju mode Killer B. His Tsukuyomi is one of the best genjutsu in the series. It's implied to even be able to be used on perfect Jinchuriki from Naruto. His Susanoo's full power with the Tosuka Blade and Yada Mirror was enough for him to defeat Hydra Orochimaru despite Itachi himself being on the verge of death. Even if you believe the Hydra is an imp about as big as going from Curse Stage Seal 1 to Curse Stage Seal 2, which is about 10 times, this would make Hydra Orochimaru even stronger than the 5 Kage, considering the base Sannin are already comparable to the 5 Kage. The usage of the Susanoo and these spirit weapons make
it's a fair power scaling assessment.
Zetsu refers to him as invincible. In Sasuke's character file of the 4th data book, Sasuke is said to have surpassed Itachi upon gaining the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. This helps further support that, similar to Pain, full power Itachi is a relatively invincible fighter, above the likes of Sage 1 Naruto and Mangekyo Sharingan Sasuke. The main weakness of Itachi is his stamina when it comes to using his Mangekyo, which shouldn't be the biggest problem, as Itachi should be smart enough to only use it when absolutely necessary. Overall, Itachi will be one of the biggest problems the allied Shinobi forces has to deal with, and is a combatant that has strength well above any of the Sannin and even greater than the Gokage when they're at full power. The next one in the group is the greedy tentacle man named Kakuzu. As some of you know, Kakuzu's strength somehow became a controversial topic within this community, so this part will be a bit brief so as to not grind too many gears. Kakuzu is the clear superior of the immortal duo between him and Hidan. He has 5 hearts, with each heart containing one of the main 5 nature transformations of chakra, granting him the level of immortality. With the Earth Grudge Fear Kenjutsu he stole from his village, he gains a very strange anatomy, turning himself into a ragdoll-like human. Using this Kenjutsu, he was also able to detach and reattach his limbs, and also transform into this monster whenever he gets pushed into battle. Kakuzu is quite durable as he takes a direct strike from Yugito whenever she transforms into an incomplete Biju mode, shown to be much smaller than Matatabi in the war with the help of a Jinchuriki. Although the Biju mode is incomplete, this still would scale Kakuzu's durability above the attacks from a hypothetical V2 Yugito. Since Yugito isn't referred to as a perfect Jinchuriki, we can't exactly scale this to somebody like V2B, but we do know this is still a huge power increase, making this feat great regardless. With the assistance of Hidan, they are able to defeat transformed Yugito as well. He's later shown to be able to fight with Kakashi, with some slight assistance from Hidan at a few points. It should be noted that at the start of the battle, Kakashi does destroy one of Kakuzu's 5 hearts with a sneak attack. This is the heart that allowed him to use Earth Style, and his Earth Style spear technique that granted him the armor. Without this sneak attack, Kakashi's Mangekyo, or the arrival of Naruto to defeat him, Kakuzu would have soloed this entire team. Although all of this is quite impressive for Kakuzu, we can only place him in the elite Jonin levels of power due to him lacking any Kage level feats. Kisame is a fan favorite and one of the most interesting members of the Akatsuki. When it comes to his moveset, even without Samehada, which should make him at least have strength, Kisame still is a grand jutsu used to absorb chakra and go against an opponent such as 7th Gate Guy. With the usage of Samehada and the abilities of chakra absorption, Kisame is able to get stronger as he fights. With this ability, he's shown to be a formidable fighter, even able to fight with Killer Bee up to his V2 cloak. When fused with Samehada, he's compared to a tailed beast and even gained the moniker of the tailless Biju, or the tailless tailed beast. He's able to create a gigantic water bubble, limiting his opponent's ability and increasing his own. He can absorb chakra upon contact with his opponents, and he uses this to dominate V2 Killer Bee and even calls him disappointing because of this. Kisame at his peak should be comparable to a Biju or even stronger, and at least a Kage level combatant, and that's honestly downplayed. Konan is another Akatsuki
I definitely agree with that.
Tends to be viewed
He's
as
a downplayed member of the Akatsuki a lot of the time.
Manga, it becomes extremely clear as to why. Konan arguably has some of the lowest amount of feats in the Akatsuki and barely even fights anyone. She has a little scuffle with base Jiraiya that results in her quick defeat, and a battle with Obito that she loses as well, despite the implications that she's been meticulously preparing for the battle. She also did use a paper clone to assist Pain during the Leaf's invasion, but it doesn't end up fighting anyone important enough for this discussion.
I agree. Correct.
To Jiraiya and Obito, she still has a few impressive feats that can be taken into account for her scaling. When Konan is ordered to go after Jiraiya by Pain, she claims that she can handle Jiraiya on her own, despite being his student in the past, and well aware of his moniker as one of the legendary 3. Also in the anime, she was able to push back Jiraiya's fire style jutsu with her paper bombs, but that's only in the anime. She's also shown to be able to get hit by Jiraiya's fire style ninjutsu in her paper form and be completely fine. Jiraiya is shown to make an effort of dodging her paper attacks, proceeding with an oil-based ninjutsu that prevents her from literally fighting by disabling her main ninjutsu, turning into paper. Based on what Conan says, and due to Jiraiya beating her due to a specific weakness as opposed to using overwhelming speed or power, it could be said that Conan is around the level of one of the Sannin in just their base form. In the battle
yeah,
with
even that would be a
Obito,
stretch in my
Conan is shown to
opinion.
be able to put damage on Obito
But
with
I could
paper
see the
bombs,
argument.
even before the sea of 6 billion paper bombs. Obito doesn't have the most durability feats, but he is shown to be able to block Suigetsu's swing of the Executioner Blade with just his arm. Blocking a blade like this is actually pretty insane, considering that cutting people who are stronger than you seems to be the norm in Naruto. A couple examples of this is Asuma beheading Hidan, who he admits is superior to him, or early Land of Waves Naruto's kunai making Zabuza release the water from Kakashi's water prison. Keeping this in mind, Obito has durability far above elite Jonin levels, and it wouldn't be far-fetched to say this is a Kage level feat for Conan. It should be said also that what Suigetsu did should be an easier form of harming Obito, considering how piercing and slicing works as compared to the blunt force of something like an explosion of paper bombs. During the scene where Obito is surrounded by said sea of paper bombs, Obito makes an attempt to escape completely into the Kamui dimension, which Conan stops by controlling the paper bombs to attack him. Due to the fact that Obito managed to grab Sasuke and escape to the Kamui dimension before Sasuke got killed by Inoki's particle style without even Inoki noticing, it seems to be consistent that Conan's speed is above the level of the Kage, excluding the Raikage of course. Another interesting thing about the Obito battle is that it takes place in the rain, something that has been implied to be a setback for Conan as implied in chapter 368. This is
I would counter that statement, right, him saying that Conan's speed is above that of a Kage, by saying it was the prep time and the meticulous preparation for Obito's ability that gave her a huge advantage in being able to time Obito correctly. And Obito that came in blindly and clearly underestimating someone that he doesn't consider very threatening, right? So I would say it's not simply that Conan's speed is a level of a Kage. I think prep time and the fact that your opponent is somewhat lax and not really taking the fight serious would kind of counter that claim that she's that fast. I just don't agree with that. And I think her anti-feat against Jiraiya kind of also sustains that, right? If she was that fast, then Jiraiya in base wouldn't have even with his imperfect Sage mode, wouldn't have the success that he had against Conan when they fought. Right, so I don't really agree with that claim, but again, it's arguable, right? We're talking about gray areas here, but I lean towards her not being that fast in my opinion. But let's continue on.
This is when Pain turns off his rain jutsu at will before Conan travels throughout the village to find Jiraiya. The fact that this impressive feat of tagging Obito when Inoki couldn't have may have been done by a nerfed Conan easily makes her Kage level. So depending on how you view her feat, scaling and statements, Conan could be a Kage to Sannin level opponent for the Alliance. For the sake of the video, we'll be going with the higher interpretation of Conan being Sannin
Fair enough.
level. Pain is another top Akatsuki member as the group's invincible leader. Pain is called undefeatable and invincible on multiple occasions, similar to when Itachi is using Susanoo, Tosca Blade, and Yaramir. This would be even better for Pain considering he lacks the stamina issues of Itachi due to his Uzumaki blood and the Rinnegan. Even
Right.
Zetsu, despite being the Akatsuki scout that has been around since before the group had even ever existed and records all their battles, couldn't believe that Obito could have foreseen the possibility of Pain's defeat. The narrative of the manga around the time that Pain is around essentially portrays him as one of the strongest people in the entire world, only being inferior to his superior Obito and other deceased shinobi such as Hashirama and
Right.
Madara. Even Naruto, who surpassed Sage Jiraiya with prep time and assistance from the strongest toes of Mount Miyaboku, still loses to Pain, who started the battle without the strongest Paz ability.
Correct.
Even with Naruto using the 6-tailed V2 cloak of the strongest Biju, and even eventually an 8-tailed partially transformed state, Pain is shown and implied to be able to deal with all of this. Pain is only defeated by Naruto after meeting with his father and getting some guidance, That even makes Pain note that Naruto's doubt is completely erased. All of this plus the literal statement of him being the strongest man in the Akatsuki easily scales Pain above the level of the 5 Kage, above Itachi and everyone else I've mentioned so far. Getting into our second to last Akatsuki member, Sasori. I made a video on him recently, so if you want even more context for what I'm about to say, I suggest you go watch that.
Sasori is always an interesting one to try and scale, right? Because of the ambiguity.
Sasori is able to casually defeat an early Shippuden Kankuro using his Hiriko puppet. With his modified third Kazakage puppet, he's able to use the Iron Sand of late Kazakage, hailed as the strongest ninja of the sand. He even modifies the puppet using hidden mechanisms and magnetic repulsions. Even with this modified version of the strongest ninja from the sand, he's still superior upon the usage of his own puppet body and the 100 puppets technique. This would make Sasori above the likes of Chiyo, Hanzo, Rasa, and the third Kazakage. Hanzo being someone who can solo the Sannin even with the assistance of a platoon would make Hanzo and anyone who scales above or to him a Gokage level combatant. The level Sasori will be for the sake of the video. Zetsu is going to be a weird one. Obviously, White Zetsu is trash and even said to not be a combat type by Obito, so he'll be ignored. Black Zetsu does do some very interesting things in the war arc. When reading the story, it's abundantly clear that these later feats from Black Zetsu were more of a retcon and something he isn't implied to be able to do from the start of part 2. If you want a rationalization of this, it could be said that when Kaguya came closer and closer to being resurrected, Black Zetsu being her will incarnate also became stronger. For simplicity's sake, we'll just leave Zetsu in the role as the observer that records for this battle. With all of this under review,
fair enough.
The Akatsuki are composed of 3 5 Kage level shinobi, a Sannin level shinobi, 2 Kage level shinobi, and 2 elite Jonin level shinobi. So how will the Alliance face off against such a threat of an organization? To go over the Shinobi Alliance, we'll be going over a general bit of information, just like we did with the Akatsuki.
Alright.
The Alliance is first conceived by Gaara after Obito declares war on the Kage at the 5 Kage Summit. His specific reason for this was to counter the power of 7 Biju. It should be noted, however, that this statement is made before the inclusion of Naruto, B, Tsunade, Mifune, and the Samurai, making the Alliance a good deal above the power of just the 7 Biju. One of the highest war powers of the Alliance is of course the 5 Kage, who are said to be comparable to the Sannin. Considering the situation at hand, the 5 Kage are obviously more powerful than just the level of the Sannin together. Not only does Tsunade reveal the 100 healings for the very first time in this war, but we also see new combinations such as A and Inoki, or Inoki and Tsunade, which makes the power of the 5 Kage much greater than it would have been beforehand. For this part of the video, since the Alliance is so big, I decided to go over the Alliance and how they'd be able to counteract the Akatsuki by using the established levels of the ladder. Hidan and Kakuzu will be going first, as this is not a winnable battle for them whatsoever. We're already shown in the war that Darui, with the help of Izumo and Kotetsu, can fight against Kakuzu with no conclusion to the battle. Izumo and Kotetsu assisting Darui doesn't really do much here, as Kakuzu has encountered them in the past, but simply forgot their names because they weren't that relevant to him, because they didn't garner a bounty. Darui is as well coming off of the battle against Kinkaku and Genkaku, where he used the Sage of 6 Paths tool that are known for being really chakra draining. Although Darui is super talented, he isn't noted for having any amazing reserves of chakra compared to his peers, or to anyone for that matter. So it's likely that he was super fatigued. Kakuzu also gets off-screened by Butterfly Choji too, so that's a plus for the Alliance as well. With Hidan being the clear inferior to Kakuzu, it becomes easy to understand why they don't play too much of a part in this battle. All you really need to defeat them is maybe like 2 to 3 Kage guards, or just Butterfly Choji to slap them all on his own. Now, this is a part of the Alliance where it actually starts getting some serious competition. Against Deidara and Kisame, they would need at least 2 Kage level fighters. First thing that's got to be addressed is that Edo Deidara did indeed get speed blitzed and slapped by Sai in the war arc. This can be overlooked though, as Deidara wasn't going all out against Sai in their division. And also the fact that Sai gets a clear mental amp due to Sasori using his brother as a puppet because he wasn't revived with any of his own. Deidara and Kisame's whole wide AoE thing makes this harder, especially in the case of an airborne Datara. To make it fair, Kisame would have to start this battle out in base and would need to build up chakra before fusing, which he could probably get again if he fought B again, or just a huge amount of people who are using ninjutsu on him. The easiest way to deal with Datara here would be with Inoki, who is shown to be comparable in flight speed to him not long before the war, and should soundly beat him with particle style. The solution for Kisame would probably be the combination of Choji, Choza, Kage guards, and some more sideline support. Unless you believe Kisame in base is like multiple tiers above Kakuzu, this should be enough for Kisame to be defeated. If for some reason you see Kisame is strong enough to face off against Choji, Choza, Darui, Kuretsuchi, Akatsuki, Chojuro, Kankuro, and Tamari all at once, and would even have the opportunity to transform, then these guys are all done for. There's just nothing they can do. Given Kisame's scaling in base though, he would likely lose here. Next fighter for the Alliance to deal with
I think that's contentious, but I mean, it's not a bad claim.
To find a fighter to go against her. A good pick here would probably be Mifune, who was strong enough to fight against Prime Hanzo, and should be a great deal above the level of Asani. He should be able to just dodge her attacks and cut her up or all of her paper, or maybe even cut her before she gets turned into paper. For the last climactic battle, I decided to go with B, Naruto, and the 5 Kage against Itachi, Pain, and Sasori. The combo of Naruto and B alone is very powerful and should be able to deal with each of these Akatsuki members individually. As mentioned before, the Raikage and Inoki's combo is something we haven't seen before, and boasts great speed that speed blitz Madara, and the power to knock back a complete Susanoo or crack the ribcage Susanoo. This combination of A and Inoki would likely just speed blitz and two-shot Pain or Itachi. So now imagine if you gave this combo the assistance of Gaara, Mei, and 100 healing Tsunade. It becomes quite clear who's coming out on top in that battle. Even if for some reason you believe that Itachi and Pain are strong enough to equalize the strength of these Kage, Naruto and B should be able to participate in this battle after making light work of Sasori or any other Akatsuki member mentioned before you think would have gotten past the rest of the Alliance or given them a hard time. Naruto himself could actually just make a clone for each member of the Akatsuki, just like when he first joined the war and created around a dozen clones that shifted the tide of a battle. So Naruto alone would slap most of the Akatsuki, while then providing support in the battles that are just a bit harder for some of the other Alliance members. If you take away B, Naruto, and the 5 Kage for this, and just have the Alliance go up against the Akatsuki, I do see it as an Akatsuki W. But with the team we currently have here, it's more than likely to...
Well, you gotta take into consideration my guy, though.
That's all from me. Obviously, like the video if you like the video.
8 Gates, my guy, that is.
Like the video, and have a nice day.
Alright, there you guys have it. That's the video. I definitely want to get my thoughts on this. So, I could see how this video was structured, and I appreciate it. I thought the video was very good. Obviously, you know, these topics can get ambiguous and there's a lot of gray area, so there are some things that I disagreed with, which I pointed out, like Konan being Kage level and her speed being that of a Kage. I disagree. I think context matters more than was shined light on here, but you know, you can argue it. I don't think it's unarguable. It's impossible to scale her to that degree. I think it is possible, but I don't think she's that speed at all. I really don't. But besides that, I basically agree with just about everything Six said, right, and how the conclusions of these fights should go. I think Kisame would give a tougher time than he gave Kisame credit for, in my opinion. I think he's a very, very powerful opponent. I mean, he fodderized Killer Bee version 2, right? He did have the water dome technique, you know, gradually seeping his chakra, and he did have Sameada and things like that, right? And so he was talking about base Kisame, but I think even base Kisame is a problem, a huge problem that's overlooked. And I think it would take considerable Shinobi Alliance power to take him out, right? Maybe they don't need, you know, the 5 Kage and Naruto and B for that, or my guy Nate Gates or anything, but they would need considerable power to defeat him. You know, I think in most scenarios, right, Six kind of pointed out a very specific scenario with selecting sections of the Shinobi Alliance for each member of the Akatsuki. I think in most scenarios, the Shinobi Alliance would win, right? If we're talking about this, the regular Akatsuki with Obito, Pain, Itachi, and the rest of the gang, and not Madara or Edo Itachi and Edo Nagato. So, or White Mask Obito for that matter. So, I think in most scenarios, the Shinobi Alliance would win, even beginning of the war Shinobi Alliance. I even think they would probably win without EMS Sasuke. Right at the beginning of this video, I was presupposing that Six would have EMS Sasuke in there, but if you were being technical, he wasn't part of the alliance till later on in the war arc, when this would no longer be a discussion, right? Because we got Casey into Naruto and EMS Sasuke and at another level, etc. But going back to what I was saying, in most scenarios, the Shinobi Alliance would win. They have the number advantage clearly, right? And they have several Kage plus level combatants on their side. Casey and Naruto, Killer Bee going all out. The five Kage. Might Guy if he has to go 8 gates, and arguably Kakashi. You can even argue Kakashi if you scale him, and you try to scale him during his time versus White Master Obito in the Jinchuriki. He was reacting to version 2 Jinchuriki, right? So you can even argue him being at around that level, give or take, right? It's another point that you could debate as well and argue. But all in all, I agree with Six's overall claim. The Shinobi Alliance would most likely win. And in the most realistic scenario, even if some of these Akatsuki members did make some progress, the top dogs of the Shinobi Alliance would take them down anyway. Let's say Kisame does fuck up a division of the Alliance, they would just send Naruto and B and maybe the 5 Kage if they really had to, and he'd be done for. So this was an interesting video. I think the picture painted was very well done by Six as always. He's one of the best to do this. And let me know your thoughts on this. This is an interesting discussion. With certain specifics laid out, who do you think would win? Different specifics, different respective versions of these opponents, right? The Shinobi Alliance and the Akatsuki. Let me know your thoughts. I'm always interested to hear, and I actually do read them. So please let me know. Let me know your thoughts on my thoughts and Six thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are you in the middle? Let me know that as well. But it's going to wrap it up, folks, and I'll catch you in the next one. This is Jay the Great signing out. Peace.